What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, November 25th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:24 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Venezuela. I wanted to update you guys with all of the latest information that I have. So right now, this afternoon, we have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert. Just a few minutes ago, there was a tactical nuclear code transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces. We have a Cobra ball heading up to Alaska right now. It might be going over to Asia. This is a missile detecting and tracking plane. But we also have several B-52s airborne today. And also, I want to remind you guys that today was the day that they had the NOTAM in the Gulf of America. So I don't know if that was to refuel the B-52s that were coming back from the demonstration yesterday off the coast of Venezuela. But right now we have two nuclear war command and control planes up in the air. We also have a combat sentinel up in the air over the Midwest. It's currently flying over New Mexico. And the combat sentinel is the highest priority reconnaissance plane in the U.S. military. The Air Force only has two of these planes. So if one of them is airborne, it means something is going on. And these planes send intelligence directly to the president and our top generals. You can see it right here over New Mexico, and it did like this big loop here over the Central Plains. There's also a strategic RC-135 that was doing some loops here near the Mexican border in New Mexico, and based on the direction that it was flying these loops, it was looking towards northwestern Mexico, keeping an eye on the cartels over here. Okay, and this is a strategic level RC-135 rivet joint because it took off from Offutt Air Base. Okay, so the Trump administration keeping a close eye on Mexico. So the Trump administration keeping a close eye on Baja California and Sonora. There's a lot of cartels here in Sonora. And then here you can see the combat sentinel. Here we have one of the nuclear war command and control planes. And then here's another nuclear war command and control plane. Looks like it's heading straight down to the Gulf, which means it's going to transmit codes probably in the coming hours to our nuclear armed submarines out here in the Gulf. And here you can see the two B-52s airborne, one looping over southern Louisiana, one looping in the Texas Panhandle. And then interestingly, we also had a P-8 Poseidon Subhunter off the coast of Virginia Beach. And then here you can see this U.S. Navy MQ-4 Triton recon drone patrolling the East Coast. And I wonder if it's going down to the Caribbean or if it's just patrolling this area here to scan for any kind of threats. But this is a very unusual flight pattern considering the Subhunter was right in this area here off the continental shelf. So there could potentially be some kind of threat to the East Coast. And we have more F-18s off the coast of Venezuela this afternoon. Here you can see two F-18s just to the northeast of the island country of Curacao. So this is less than 100 miles off the coast of Venezuela. And then we also had the U.S. military top general Dan Kane leave Trinidad. He was in Trinidad earlier and I guess last night, and he just left. So it looks like he was inspecting U.S. forces in Trinidad. Okay, so this is basically the final preparations, last-minute preparations for strikes on Venezuela. Now, so far we haven't seen any strikes on Venezuela, and there could be multiple reasons for this. Yesterday, Trump told his advisors that he's planning to speak directly with Maduro on the phone, so he wants to talk to Maduro on the phone. We know that Trump likes to do that. He always likes to talk with Putin or Kim Jong-un or any of these other leaders, the Iranians. He likes to speak to them directly by phone. So maybe he's giving Maduro one last chance to walk away and surrender and not surrender, but step down, okay, and leave power. So we'll have to wait and see how it unfolds. But the U.S. military top general Dan Kane is in the region. He was in Trinidad. That is a huge sign that something is about to go down if Maduro does not voluntarily step down, okay? And Axios reported yesterday that U.S. officials believe that Cuban assassins may kill Maduro if he tries to flee Venezuela, which U.S. officials now believe as one reason, major reason why Maduro hasn't stepped down yet, because of the fear that Cuban intelligence could execute him. So that's pretty interesting. And speaking of Venezuela, the Venezuelan Air Force put on some kind of demonstration overflight here. You can see multiple Venezuelan fighter jets. They look like a mixture of F-16'S and Sukhoi 30s. Okay, so Venezuela is on high alert. They do have a good number of fighter jets. As you can see, they also have a good number of air defenses. So clearly a sign that Venezuela is preparing for an attack, okay? And a few days ago, I reported that VIPs in Venezuela have already been moved. We know that the vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, was seen in a motorcade fleeing his home 2 days ago. And then last week, there were multiple motorcades going to the Simon Bolivar International Airport every night. Okay, so VIPs have been evacuated from their homes and their primary locations in anticipation of U.S. strikes. And one thing I wanted to show you guys about Venezuela is we have a lot of cloud cover over Venezuela. Look at this. Really thick, low clouds over all of Venezuela pretty much, especially around Caracas and the entire coastline here. So this could potentially hinder operations against Venezuela, and it could be why we haven't struck Venezuela yet. They could be waiting for these clouds to lift because they need to have some visual confirmation when they're striking specific targets. They want to be able to look down from space with satellites and confirm certain targets, confirm intelligence. They don't want to make any mistakes. They don't want to harm civilians. So they need these clouds to be lifted so they can maximize the geospatial intelligence. So we'll have to wait and see. They could be waiting for these clouds to lift. As you can see, they're pretty thick, and they go all the way up towards Puerto Rico as well. And a drone crashed into a house in a village in Moldova this morning. The Moldovan police are investigating, but likely a Russian drone. And also Romanian F-16's had to be deployed to intercept a Russian drone that flew into Romanian airspace last night. And after several days of negotiations, U.S. and Ukrainian officials have agreed in principle on most aspects of the heavily revised, now 19-point peace plan towards ending the Russian invasion of Ukraine, though Ukrainian President Zelensky wants to meet President Trump as soon as possible, potentially over Thanksgiving, to finalize a joint agreement between Ukraine and the United States on the terms for ending the war with Russia. Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, told Axios. Okay, so looks like a 19-point peace plan is now being developed. Originally, it was 28 points, and Zelensky wants to meet Trump in person. And the U.S. Secretary of the Army, Daniel Driscoll, met for several hours Monday night in Abu Dhabi with Russian officials as the Trump administration attempts to rapidly push through a peace deal. This was reported by CBS News. Okay, so Dan Driscoll was in Abu Dhabi meeting with Russians, and Nebraska Republican Don Bacon told Axios that he was so appalled by the Trump administration's proposed peace plan to end the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which he dubbed the Witkoff Ukrainian Surrender Plan, after Trump's special envoy Witkoff, that he considered resigning early from his seat in Congress. And French President Emmanuel Macron made some comments earlier this morning about the peace deal. He said troops from France, the UK, and Turkey would form the Ukraine Reassurance Force. So basically they would be deployed into Ukraine. And he also said the primary defense for Ukraine rests with its own military. He said the main security threat for Europe comes from Russia. And he also said we want solid security guarantees for us and for Ukraine. And Sweden plans to buy cruise missiles that can reach Moscow and could be used in the event of an attack on NATO. So basically they would strike Moscow if Russia were to attack NATO. Wow. And last night, the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv came under a major ballistic and cruise missile attack by Russia, with multiple Kinzhal air-launched ballistic missiles targeting thermal power plants across the city, along with the Kyiv hydroelectric power plant. Russia also launched Shahed drones from 21 directions towards Ukraine. A high-rise building was hit in Kyiv, causing numerous fatalities. And I'm hearing as many as like 490 drones were launched by Russia towards Ukraine. And this is all on the eve of this peace plan. So these massive strikes coming right on the eve of the deadline of the Ukrainian peace plan. Russia clearly not respecting the peace process and continuing to strike Ukraine in the middle of the peace process. And Ukraine carried out a cruise missile attack earlier yesterday against the Taganrog Central Air Base in the Rostov Oblast of Western Russia, with video of the attack's aftermath showing a large military aircraft ablaze on the tarmac of the base, possibly an A-60 airborne laser test bed, of which only 2 were ever constructed for the Russian Air Force. So this was a plane that the Russians created to test a laser weapon system, and Ukraine hit it with a drone, and it's completely destroyed now. And a U.S. RQ-4 Reaper drone crashed off of South Korea last night. The U.S. Air Force refuses to comment on the cause of the crash. What if North Korea shot that drone down? That would be insane. And China reportedly prepared a detailed strike map for Japan, highlighting PLA missile flight paths, potential targets across Honshu, Kyushu, and Hokkaido, including nuclear plants and submarine strike zones. Okay, so China is preparing to go to war with Japan, making this detailed strike plan involving striking nuclear plants and submarine strike zones. Very concerning. And U.S. President Donald Trump spoke Monday night with Japanese Prime Minister Takashi for the first time since tensions boiled over last week between China and Japan, sparked by Takashi's recent statement before Parliament that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan could trigger a military response by Japan. President Trump mentioned that he and I are extremely good friends and that I should call him anytime, Takashi told reporters following her call with Trump. During the call, President Trump explained to Takashi the recent state of relations between the U.S. and China, including his phone call Monday with Chinese President Xi Jinping, in which Xi said that Taiwan's return to China is a key part of Beijing's vision for the world, with it not known if this statement received any pushback from Trump. Okay, so Xi Jinping told Trump on the phone yesterday that Taiwan's return to China is a key part of China's vision for the world, okay? And then earlier today, the Prime Minister of Taiwan said that they would definitely not agree to that. And yesterday, fighter jets with the Japan Air Self-Defense Force's Southwest Air Defense were scrambled to intercept a Chinese high-altitude surveillance drone that had passed between Yonaguni Island and Taiwan in the Philippine Sea amid escalating tensions between China and Japan. And the death toll in Ethiopia's first outbreak of the deadly Marburg hemorrhagic fever has risen to 5, with 10 cases confirmed. Another 3 dead patients are also suspected to have died from the Ebola-like killer, but full lab tests have yet to confirm the cause. Health experts have rushed to the outbreak site in southern Ethiopia since the first cases were confirmed earlier this month. Scientists have warned that the outbreak's proximity to borders with Kenya and South Sudan means that if it's not contained, it could spread rapidly. Marburg is caused by a filovirus carried by fruit bats and can jump to people exposed to the flying animals in caves or mines. Infection is then transmitted through direct contact with the bodily fluids of infected patients. The disease, which is similar to Ebola, kills up to 88% of those it infects. Wow. And Trump signed an executive order Monday afternoon launching a new federal effort to supercharge American artificial intelligence development and scientific applications, unveiling the new Genesis mission to support American efforts on AI. The order charts out a series of steps to expand computational resources, increase access to vast federal datasets, and move toward impactful real-world applications, particularly in scientific fields. The Genesis mission will dramatically accelerate scientific discovery, strengthen national security, secure energy dominance, enhance workforce productivity, and multiply the return on taxpayer investment into research and development, the order states. Monday's order describes the Genesis mission as comparable in urgency and ambition to the Manhattan Project. Wow. Okay, so this is very concerning. This is like something right out of Hollywood. If you remember in one of the Terminator movies, the precursor to the Skynet AI, which is the main villain in the Terminator series, was called Genesis. And if you watch the movie Terminator Genesis, that was the name of the initial AI that they came up with before Skynet. Okay, so Trump issuing an executive order to supercharge federal efforts to develop artificial intelligence, okay, research and development. This is extremely concerning, guys. They're trying to create the beast system. Once AI is in control of everything, they can monitor everything we do, everywhere you go shopping, all the websites you visit, everywhere you drive, your income, everything goes into the algorithm, and then the AI can filter through and track you and highlight certain people. They probably already have this technology now, but it's not fully implemented. So this is very concerning, guys. Okay, remember, Trump was the guy who pushed for the vax, Operation Warp Speed. You remember that? Where he said that America is going to be the first one to develop a vax for COVID. And now he's supercharging AI development. I don't think he's on our side, guys. I think he's working for the New World Order, okay? And U.S. Special Forces have launched a ground operation against the Islamic State of the Somalia province in the Balad Valley in Somalia. Violent clashes are presently underway between U.S. troops and the Islamic State in the Kal Mascad mountain range. Initial media intelligence reports indicate at least 100 U.S. Special Operations Forces are carrying out the ground operation. All right, so keep them in our prayers. Pray for our soldiers carrying out this very dangerous mission in Somalia to take out these evil Islamic State militants in Somalia. Okay, these are the worst of the worst people. You remember years ago when they would tape themselves cutting people's heads off with knives? You remember that? Well, they're still around, and our soldiers are fighting against those savages, so pray that they don't get captured by any of those savages, okay? And pray that God keeps them safe on this holiday. And what you're looking at here is a large number of Russian airborne command and control planes up in the air last night, the Ilyushin 96-300s. These are basically like nuclear war command and control planes. They can function as a communication relay between the Russian president and Russia's strategic forces. There were 4 of them airborne last night. So I don't know if this was because the U.S. was planning to strike Venezuela. And then we also had a combat sentinel return to the U.S. from the U.K., Cobra 47. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I'll probably be back later on this evening around 8 p.m. Eastern Time to do some live coverage and live updates. I'm going to be monitoring the situation with Venezuela very closely. If anything happens, I will go live 24/7 if necessary. But until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.